this heaven?
No. It's Iowa.
Hey, Eric, I've got a great pitch for a killer podcast.
This better be good. I hear 50,000 pitches a year.
All right. Well, just hear me out. You are going to love this.
Okay, 25 words or less.
Great. All right. These two schlubby middle-aged white dudes. They talk about movies.
Man, that's not very original.
No, but here's the catch. Each movie they talk about connects to Field of Dreams in some way.
That might work. How about we have some sort of heist, shootout, huge celebrity guests, maybe, end in a battle at high noon.
Oh, definitely. We can even throw in a steamy sex scene between the co-hosts.
All right, call my office in the morning.
It's The Player on the Pod of Dreams.
From director Robert Altman comes a story of Hollywood.
I got a writer in here who's got a pitch I think you ought to hear. I think it's hot.
Griffin Mill is a hotshot studio executive. He's heard every pitch. He knows all the angles and all the players.
We're the stars.
No stars.
No stars?
Bruce Willis.
I want Bruce Willis.
Not Bruce Willis. No Schwarzenegger.
Julia Robbins.
Now, he's about to star.
How did this get here?
They're coming from a writer.
Hello, is David Kahane there, please? This is Griffin Mill.
Oh, the dead man.
In his most unforgettable story yet.
Stop all the postcards. I don't write postcards. I write postcards. This is a tough story. A tragedy.
Not unlike Ghost meets Manchurian Candidate.
The trouble is,
Something you have to know. If you went to Pasadena with intent to kill, you could go to the gas chamber.
it's not a movie.
I'd like you to come down to the station. I would hate to get the wrong person arrested.
Oh, please. This is Pasadena. We do not arrest the wrong person. That's L.A.
It's his life.
Are you seeing someone else? Oh, you took her to a party, Griffin, with several hundred of my best friends.
Do places like this really exist?
Only in movies.
Robert Altman's The Player.
So, Eric, we are talking about the Robert Altman film The Player, and it's a movie that follows a movie executive, and there's an awful lot of talk about how movies should end, how they can make money ending, what kind of endings people want. In this one, we get the kind of phony Hollywood ending where our protagonist gets the woman, gets everything he wants, and everything's great and happy. Were you happy with that ending?
I loved the ending of this movie, if that's what you're asking. Absolutely loved it.
Now, did you love it because you were rooting for our guy to succeed?
No, it was incredibly dark. This ending freaking bummed me out, man. It was super dark. But I think that's the point, right? It's
I agree. You and I agree. It's like we get the fake Happywood ending.
Oh no, the way this movie ended, I was just like, holy shit! But
it's dark
cynical and dark and awful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't get the true end. You get an ending that's overtly happy, but in a way that's depressing.
The bad guy won. It's like
correct.
The Thanos ending of this movie. You're watching the villain get the hot lady and the big corner office and all this success, and then the movie ends. It's like, wait a second, this guy murdered somebody and got away with it. Yeah, it was dark. This is a really dark ending.
It is. So we'll cut it. We'll go back here. So it starts off. I'll explain why I picked this movie. I love Robert Altman movies. He's got a very kinetic style. Sometimes it's pretty meandering. I didn't think this one meandered so much.
No, it didn't have the like mumbling, just people sort of talking over each other. This movie didn't have that. No,
there was a little bit of that, but not a lot. It had a pretty clear plot. But this is one I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of his stuff from the 70s, and then Robert Altman has this dark phase in the 80s where he did like Popeye and probably some other stuff that I don't recall and isn't really well regarded. And then he has this resurgence in the 90s, and The Player is one of those movies, along with like Shortcuts. I hadn't seen this before, and so I really wanted to watch it. I've heard good things, and this is why I watched it. But we get.
Oh, this is a first-time watch for you, also.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I started this very tired at the end of the day once, and I was like, I'm just going to watch part of it, and then I got immediately pulled in and just kept saying, all right, a little bit more, and then I watched the whole thing. Which is kind of a spoiler to the review I'm going to give it at the end, but. We get Tim Robbins, who's this like vice president at some movie studio. I don't remember if it's Fox or whatever it is, but he's
I don't think they say. I don't think they ever say what.
Oh yeah, they probably don't. They probably don't for reasons having to not want to piss those studios off. but the other ones get referenced all the time. But he gets pitched all the time. He's getting pitched from like Buck Henry, the guy who wrote The Graduate, and Buck Henry's pitching The Graduate too. It's hilarious. Everybody's desperately trying to get his ear. I mean, he's getting pitched to constantly in this movie. And he's going through a rough. He's about to be replaced in the studio.
Yeah, but you're skipping over like one of the most incredible parts of this whole movie is that opening sequence.
The tracking shot.
And then you got the guy from Tremors walking through because he's a security guy.
Fred
and
Ward,
he's talking to, I think, the other guy pitching a movie, and he's telling him about the amazing Orson Welles tracking shot in A Touch of Evil, and they're walking through this huge tracking shot where it goes in between offices and in the parking lot. I mean, it's got to be a good 15 minutes of one shot. I was blown away. I actually rewound it and watched the whole thing over again because I was like, whoa, holy shit, that's so brilliant. And then commenting on the fact that it's a tracking shot and how that's like the better way to open a movie. I thought that was pretty meta and pretty cool. Yeah,
the whole movie's very meta for sure. I mean, it's very cognizant of the way movies are made and deeply cynical about the process. Doesn't have a lot of love for movie making, even though it's a super well-made movie. One of the great ironies. Yeah, no, it does start off gorgeously, and you get to see the whole studio and everything surrounding it. It pulls out from the office, and you get to just be introduced to the whole...
also meet all the the main characters in the film too.
Yep. You get the vibe, you get the feel, you get to see where you're at. You're seeing how the sausage is made. You're seeing all the characters and where they stand. But it turns out Tim Robbins is he gets a lot of pitches from writers, and he turns down the vast majority of them, which is probably something you knew, but some writers disagree with Tim Robbins' assessment of their scripts, and he's getting threatening postcards, which starts off as just kind of a little side thing with what else he's got going on, but ends up becoming a bigger deal when he ends up confronting one of the writer he thinks is sending the postcards.
Fucking Vincent D'Onofrio, right?
It is. Yep.
At first, I was like, "Wait, is that Vincent D'Onofrio?" And sure enough, it was.
Yeah, it took me a second. I was like, I recognized it. I'm like, oh yeah, that is him. That's like pre-Kingpin and post Full Metal Jacket. Oh yeah, there he is, being the kind of writer. And there's so many lovely touches. So when he first of all, he doesn't know what the writer looks like. So he calls the guy's house, and a woman answers. And this was one of the only scenes I didn't like in the movie.
Yeah.
You talked about mumbly. I couldn't really hear the conversation on the phone very well. He's talking on a cell phone, or like his car phone, and he's creeping around this woman's house. He pokes his head in the window, and she doesn't see him. And that's just one of my pet peeves, is like somebody's like literally standing in the window a few feet away, and she doesn't notice him. I find that implausible. It's one of those things that I can't get past. And I couldn't understand the dialogue. It was like using weird, I don't know if they recorded the audio through
the phone. That's the Altman
shit
that I hate. Yeah, it's like they're mumbling. I can't understand what they're saying. It's like, did they not want to redo it so we understand what the hell they're saying, or do you just not even care? Is that a part of the point? It doesn't even matter what they're saying. But yeah.
I don't feel that. I think it does matter. I guess if he felt it didn't, I disagree. Yeah, it was annoying that I couldn't understand it. That was, you mentioned that, and I was trying to keep my ear out. And that was the one time I was like, okay, yeah, this is what Eric was talking about. This is frustrating. But that's the only time that happened. And then I just didn't like. It's just make him be creepier and not put his head in the window that she doesn't see. She's just that oblivious. I don't know. But anyway,
I love she like hooked the phone, because this is like old school.
Early 90s.
So she had like the landline where she like clipped it to her belt, which is like, so she must be on that phone a lot. But I thought that was like a funny touch that kind of dates the movie a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean the movie is very of its time for sure. I mean the movies have way they're made is changing, and who gets to decide who makes movies is changing. But she tells him that the writer is at a movie called The Bicycle Thief. I doubt you've seen The Bicycle Thief, Eric. Have you even heard of The Bicycle Thief?
I had not. I actually was like, oh, maybe I should check that out. There's a reason he made it that movie, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that. I someday when I want to torture you, I'll pick either Bicycle Thief or the same director as a movie called Umberto D, which is also one of my favorite movies. They're movies I don't think you would like. Are they
silent movies? Are these?
No, they're not silent, but they're talkies for sure. But this is Italy, post World War II. There's this movement called neo-realism. These are people who believed film or cinema should absolutely perfectly, or as perfectly as possible, reflect reality. So not professional actors, finding people who aren't acting, they are the part, that's who they are, and they're very depressing. They just show people struggling and, not succeeding.
Sounds like a riot. I can't wait.
So yes, that's a very, very conscious choice to show a movie that values realism. Stark bummer. Nobody can make any. I mean, literally, Bicycle Thief. A guy he's lucky enough to have a job in post World War II Italy. His bike is stolen. He spends the whole movie trying to find it. Eventually finds it, but it's gone. The person's sold it, and then he considers stealing a bike himself and doesn't. ends up not taking the bike and feeling bad or getting stopped, and then gives it back to the person. Then him and his son just
screw Pulp Fiction. Let's watch that.
Well, but this gets into it. I love those movies. I'm a weirdo. You're an everyday guy. You are, bread and butter Americana male. I love those movies because they're so different, depressing, but super well shot and conveying an aspect of reality that you don't see all the time. But I don't think they made a lot of money. They're loved by weirdos, but they don't make a lot of money, and that's a clearly conscious choice. Here's a movie that's beloved but made very little money that people don't want to see except for a very small group of people, versus here's the shit that's going to make a ton of money. That's the tension at the heart of the movie, and there's a cold logic to the choices that Tim Robbins makes with scripts. And I love that.
But he was supposed to be the writer's guy, right? That was one of the studio head kept saying, he's the writer's friend. So I thought that was kind of an interesting that, he ends up, obviously, as I mentioned, he ends up killing the writer. But that was his sort of calling card within the studio.
And writers hated him. At least two writers absolutely hated him, probably more. Yeah, it's one of the great ironies. He's a writer's guy because most people will. You saw
he worked well with writers was what they kept saying about him.
Yeah, the guy that was going to replace him, and I can't think of the actor's name. I like how he's considering just getting rid of writers. I mean, this just shows you where they stand. He's like, why don't we just not have writers? I mean, that's fine. We don't need writers. And he's just we're just going to pull headlines and make scripts out of them for nothing.
Yeah, he's like, why don't we just get rid of actors and directors too? Maybe we got something here. I thought that was pretty funny.
No, yeah, it's true. So anyway, there's this tension all throughout the movie, and you get the cold logic. I mean, they make X number of movies a year. That's all the budget they have, and this is how many pitches you got. You're just not going to have it. You're just not going to be able to have your scripts made, and they're only going to make stuff that's commercial. But I love he's being hounded by this guy with postcards who puts a snake in his car and threatens him and wants to meet him at this bar. But Tim Robbins can't go anywhere without people pitching him. Because it's Hollywood and everything revolves around the movie industry. He goes to a bar. He's told to go to a bar and sit at a table, and he sees people he knows, and then they pitch him a movie, and he decides to buy it there randomly when he wasn't planning on being there. And then, the whole thing about this movie that they're going to make, Eric, is that it's true. It's going to be this depressing movie about a woman being wrongfully convicted and about to be executed on death row, and somebody's going to find out that she's innocent and try to save her and get there too late, right? A bummer. That's what they're going for. You get the real bummer ending, and then of course by the end, I love the spoof parody at the very end.
Yeah.
And Julia Roberts is playing. They wanted no stars, right? They wanted it to be a neo-realist movie. That's what the guy's pitching him. Is this no professional? He's pitching him a neo-realist movie, and they have Julia Roberts who's about to die, and then Bruce Willis blasts through with a shotgun and saves her at the last second.
Well, it's funny because all the pitches that he heard, I think almost every single one of them, inevitably someone was like, we could get Bruce Willis for this. It was like a running gag in the movie that they were gonna whatever pitch it was. It's like, oh, we can get Bruce Willis. I think he's free, and then he ended up being in the movie in the end.
And Julia Roberts, and these are both. I mean,
they did the same gag with Whoopi Goldberg. Wasn't he pitching one in the earlier part of the movie and say, I think we can get Whoopi in it, and then
there's lots of meta stuff.
She ended up having a big part. She was the detective in the movie.
Yeah. Oh yes, but they didn't. But yeah, she wasn't playing herself. And the irony is, she'd already won an Oscar, but she was holding an Oscar and be like, oh my god, this is what an Oscar feels like.
Yeah.
But she already won one for Ghost by that point. So there's all these winking nods about Hollywood and life, and then Lyle Lovett being this creepy guy who follows him around. But I mean the setup, the Act 1 setup is that Tim Robbins confronts Vincent D'Onofrio to what end we don't really know. He just wants the postcards to stop. He's just agitated and he kills Vincent D'Onofrio, the writer, who he thinks is sending him this postcard.
Well, he was gonna give him that part confused me. So he confronts him. And D'Onofrio is like, you ignored my pitch, you don't even remember it. And then he's like, no, I want, we'll buy it, we'll make you a movie.
He didn't even know what he looked like. That was great. Like he's in there.
But then D'Onofrio gets more mad at him. It's like, why are you? He's offering you the thing you wanted. Why are you getting pissed off? That confused me. I didn't understand that.
I think he didn't believe him, is how I read that. Like, oh yeah, okay, you said you'd call me.
Well, he came all the way down there and saw him at a bar and took him out to a karaoke place. Like, he seemed pretty, like, involved in this process. Yeah, maybe he didn't remember the pitch, but, like, obviously there was a reason he's there. Like, I don't know. If you're a struggling screenwriter and this studio guy who you tried to pitch, a month or so ago, all of a sudden shows up and is like, hey, let me hear it out. Like, why would you be angry about that? No. I was confused. I didn't make it. I thought, like, okay, Tim Robbins is, like, getting frustrated with him. I thought he had every right. Now, I'm not saying he should have killed the guy, but yeah, I was just confused by why D'Onofrio was upset with him. I mean,
because he knew it was fake and that he wasn't there for his script.
But was it though?
That's my take. People can disagree, but I think he didn't think Tim Robbins was out there for his script. He thought he was out there to be harassed. He hunted him down, called his house, found him, and wasn't actually going to pay to make a script. I mean, I guess if you believe that he's going to pay you a big chunk of money to make your script, or at least buy the script, whether they make it or not, sure, you forgive and forget. Like, okay, here's $500,000.
Is it supposed to be like he's not going to compromise his values for this, like, studio guy?
I didn't see it that way, but you could take it that way. Like, he's a purist.
Like, you pass on me now, get out of here. I don't want to work with you anyways. Like, that sort of thing.
If the irony is that the writers don't end up mattering either by the end. I mean, there's just tons of ways this can go, because Vincent D'Onofrio dies and doesn't end up mattering. The guy that pitches him, they don't use hardly any ideas from the real script, and they just changed it based on focus groups anyway. So it hardly matters what they do with the writers. And I love the writer.
But yeah, it's this dichotomy where, like, I think, we were kind of the last episode we were talking about the, like, 70s New Hollywood, where it was like the directors and writers, they had all the power. Like, they could make any movie they wanted. It was like what the movie they wanted. But that shifted, I guess, at some point where it was like, then it was just the studios just decided basically everything.
Jaws and Star Wars is what people tend to say. Like, you showed us, this is what we need to do. This is how we make this kind of movie. These will make.
I mean, that's how it is now with, like Kevin Feige's like, we want this movie. We'll just hire this person. Like, Chloe Zhao make Eternals. It's not her movie really in any way at all. I mean, it's this pieced together, like, jumbled mess, I think.
Oh yeah.
And
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
It's not like somebody, she just won an Oscar for Best Picture. Like, it's not her movie at all. I think that's what they're commenting on, is where, like, these studio guys, they're the ones that decide what happens in the movie through the end, whatever. Like, the whole thing is like, they have all the power. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, Tim Robbins kills a guy and they end up not being able to convict him.
Well, I think that's more about, like, privilege, right? Isn't that the rich can get away with anything?
Well, and Hollywood in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't they make some comment about Rodney King too? God, maybe I'm thinking of something else. I thought there was
No. Whoopi Goldberg. I love the scene. They bring him in for questioning, and they know he's guilty, but they just need to get enough evidence to prove it. So they talk about how we got the wrong guy. You're the wrong guy. Oh, Rodney King was the wrong guy. Oh, but you're the wrong. I mean, there was this whole, like, okay, the wrong guy. That's what the wrong guy looks like. And the right guy, anyway.
This is a rich white studio head. Like, he could do whatever. He can kill a guy and get away with it. It's like.
I couldn't help but think of Harvey Weinstein, who was about to, like, take over the world, film world for a while. Like, Miramax is about to take off in the mid '90s. It's possible not to think about Harvey Weinstein getting away with his shit for 2-3 decades, however long it was, because he kept making hit movies and making people a lot of money. And that was where my head went. But yeah, I mean, it's about privilege, but I think specifically in the context of film. But yeah, there's all this tension between movies as an art form. I mean, you could say it this way: movies as an art form, quote unquote, movies as a product. And on the one side, you have the studios that want to make money, so they're just trying to sell a product that'll make money. They just want a return on their investment with profit. And the other one, you're trying to make something that's artistic and meaningful. It's clear that the artistic doesn't win out. which is cynical, but I think ultimately true. I mean, movies have been about making money basically since movies have been around, since the Thomas Edison days of the early 20th century. I mean, that's why the movie studios are in California. It's because people couldn't make movies without getting sued by Thomas Edison in New York and New Jersey. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's a tons of things to love about this movie. So Eric, so we were talking about one of the worst scenes in it, which is just that you can't hear what's going on. But if you had to pick a favorite scene, is it that tracking shot at the beginning?
That or the end. I mean, where it cuts ahead. Was it 5 years or 1 year?
It's just 1 year. It's just 1 year.
Where it cuts ahead 1 year, and it's just, you just find out that he's basically going to get away with murder, and it cuts ahead, and then he's all of a sudden the studio. He's the head of the studio. He's got this beautiful wife, a kid on the way, and then it just kind of pans out like it is a happy ending, and it's just so dark. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
It's one of the most well lit but darkest endings. I mean, it's just like, it's so bright and sunny. And you want it to be false, but it's true. It's like, I think at one point they talk about having, sugar with the medicine is how they justify adding like sex scenes or whatever. You need a little sugar with the medicine. And of course, most movies end up being just all sugar and virtually no medicine. But yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, I think that really sealed the deal. And
and he marries the woman that was with the guy he murdered.
Yeah, it's as dark as it gets.
I will say this though.
And he says the lines from the movie within the movie.
I was going to say, I will say Tim Robbins, not a huge fan of him as an actor.
He's kind of always Tim Robbins. He's one of those dudes that I was feeling like I'm looking at Tim Robbins.
But he works in this movie because the guy's supposed to suck, right? Like you're supposed to. He's going to murder somebody and get away with it. He's a studio executive. He's got like the trifecta of like terrible, awful, shitty things. But it works for Tim Robbins because I think Tim Robbins kind of sucks. He has a very punchable face. He's a guy that just I don't like it. I he's in Shawshank, and that's probably his best movie. But God, could anyone else have done that?
You wanted Andy Dufresne to stay in jail because he's just so punchable. You think he belonged?
Maybe.
Shawshank. Oh man,
Hudsucker. People love that movie.
I've never seen it.
He kind of bugs me in that as well. So yeah, it's just he's one of those actors that I think he works really great in this movie, but normally that would be too much for me. Like if they remade this, would Paul Rudd play the player? I think Paul Rudd could do that. What do you think?
Wait, isn't Paul Rudd too likable? I mean, at any point did you identify with Tim Robbins at any point in the movie? Like where you're like, I'm kind of on his side for you?
No, not at all. Yeah,
you were pretty much against him from day one. But people are pitching him stuff, and you're like, oh, screw this guy.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so. For me, yeah.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it didn't take long, but in the beginning, you're a movie executive. You don't have movie executives. You don't have movies. If you want to have a big-time movie made, you've got to go to a movie studio, and they get to say no. I love the writers all think they're so brilliant, and they're entitled to $1 million or whatever they're getting for a script is interesting because they want to make the next Bicycle Thief, but those movies don't get made unless somebody thinks they're going to make money.
So the other thing I thought was really cool about this movie is like all the celebrity cameos. I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, there's a million you could name, but a lot of Oscar winners too. I think I saw something that it had more Oscar-winning actors than any other movie in history, just like as cameos and in the movie, which I thought
probably did. I wouldn't even be able to name them all, but yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like Gary Busey, Burt Reynolds was in it for a bit. Jack Lemmon, Cher was in it, right? John Cusack. There's, just a million cameos.
Andy McDowell, a bunch more. Peter Falk. Fred Ward, who you mentioned already, Buck Henry. And we were only scratching the surface. No, I mean, and all of his movies tend to have like tons of celebrity cameos. Nashville's like that. And he's got several others kind of big ensemble pieces. I love the Lily Tomlin. We see them shooting Lily Tomlin's in a motel with the guy who plays Bishop in Aliens.
Scott Glenn. Scott Glenn, yeah.
They're in there, and you first see the shot of them like acting, and it pulls out, and then you just see how phony it is and how artificial it is. you get to see the artifice all throughout the movie, which is I love. I mean, I love the movies are very fake. They're all big lies, almost all of them. But of course, that's what we love about them is the big lies. And, you know, they would make different kind of movies if those different kind of movies would make money, but they don't care about anything but making money. So, you know, we get what we deserve is also kind of the lesson. And you know, sometimes the bad guys win.
I had a question for you.
Sure.
Were Carfax machines ever a real thing?
Oh gosh, I forgot about the Carfax.
I mean, honestly, when that popped in there, I was like, that can't. I never knew anybody that had a Carfax machine. I never see that. That can't be real, right?
If it was real, it would have been real in the early '90s for a like vice president of a movie studio. Like if somebody was going to have a device that absurd, it would be a movie studio executive in the '90s, before cell phones had internet.
Yeah, you gotta fax a headshot or something to him, and he's gotta print it out in his car. I thought that was bonkers.
It was bonkers. You're right. No, you're totally right. So I mean, did you want the snake to bite Tim Robbins? Was that, you know, when he finds?
Well, that would have been like, you know, he would have got what he deserved, right? Like the snake bites him, he dies right there, then the movie ends. You know, little bit of justice for what he did, but no, of course not. He kills the snake and gets away. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and one of the great ironies of the movie is that he doesn't even kill the writer that was sending him the threats. So that writer ends up presumably getting like $1 million to write the script
for the player, right?
Correct.
Isn't that what he's, yeah.
Yep, that's the bow on top. I mean, I've breathlessly talked about this movie, Eric, so I don't have a whole lot more to say. Anything else you want to dive into on The Player?
No, I liked it. Did you think I was going to not like it when you picked this movie?
I didn't know. Well, see, no, I would have thought you would have liked it, but then and this is all off the podcast, you talked about how you didn't like a couple of movies from the 70s. And I didn't know enough about this because I'd seen Shortcuts before, which is much more of the meandering, characters are talking and there's just like concurrent action weaving through, and it doesn't focus on one plot. So I didn't know that. But then when I watched it, I didn't think, I would have been like, oh, I'll be shocked if Eric hates this.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I really liked it.
I was like, I mean, it's well shot. I mean, you don't like Tim Robbins, but that didn't ruin the movie for you. And I was like, I mean, this movie has something to say. It's super interesting. It was great to look at. I said, I was going to just watch part of it at first. I was like, all right, I'm watching the whole thing. This is great.
Well, that's a great segue.
Yeah, what would you give it? So, Tim Robbins and all.
So I gave it 4 stars, 4 out of 5. That was my rating. I liked a lot of it. There were some scenes that I didn't care for. Tim Robbins, you're going to drop a star for sure by just Tim Robbins alone.
Oh, wow. So Shawshank Redemption is no better than 4 stars.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But like the movie reminded me a lot of like Hail Caesar. Do you remember that Coen Brothers movie, Hail Caesar?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Or like Get Shorty, you know.
I'm not seeing Get Shorty.
Oh, Get Shorty's a great movie. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of thrillers around Hollywood and, you know, studio lots and stuff. Those are always fun, I think. But this one has also that sort of twist to it where it's this just like scathing sort of criticism of that lifestyle. So yeah, I give it 4. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I realize like I keep picking all these movies I love and I'm giving them really effusive reviews, but I go 4.5 stars. I don't think I love Tim Robbins. He's always just kind of playing Tim Robbins whenever I see him in a movie.
Like Christian Bale. Christian Bale as the like.
Yeah, Christian Bale was a bazillion times better actor than Tim Robbins. He would done much better.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Christian Bale was doing like Newsies around this time though. So
no, I know. But if you're gonna like redo it now, I think Christian Bale does like 1,000,000 times better.
No, like
American Psycho Christian Bale.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. There are a lot of people you could cast better in the movie, but the casting of this didn't matter all that much. You just needed somebody to be kind of selfish jerk, and you know, it doesn't even almost matter because what matters is everything around the person, the infrastructure at the movie studio, and just the wealth and the opulence and the privilege everywhere he gets to go, and then just his scheming. But I loved it. The only thing that was bad really was that scene where he's at the writer's house creeping on the woman, and the creeping is uncomfortable, but that should be uncomfortable. It's just that you couldn't hear the dialogue.
It was too long, too. That whole scene was way too long.
It was. That's the only like bad scene in the movie, I felt. I found her character really annoying.
Yes.
I was like, I don't like words, at least not up to sentences. Like, oh gosh, you're trying so hard to be interesting that you're boring and dull and annoying.
Not a lot of like great women characters in this movie. I mean, there's his girlfriend in the beginning, and she's just trying to do her job and hustle, and he kind of throws her to the curb. But other than that, then there's the other girlfriend. So not a ton of great female representation in this movie.
Which I think is, I don't know, you want to give Robert Altman credit for that, if he's doing that intentionally or if he's part of the problem. He might just be part of the problem, but it works for the cynicism of the early 90s Hollywood.
The fact that he made one of the pseudo executives a woman, like, I guess, is sort of progressive. There probably weren't a ton back then.
Well, no, I'm saying the opposite, that it's male dominated and women weren't given a lot of power and privilege, and their perspectives weren't valued or hardly seen. But yeah, there's one executive and she gets promoted, but then of course she gets fired later on for, I guess now that we're hitting this, I also didn't like how she sees the remade version of this, supposed to be the sad neorealist film, which gets the dopey action romantic ending, and she's really upset by it, and she like throws a hissy fit in a screening room. I had trouble buying that. I thought, like, okay, she's been around the movie industry long enough that the cynicism would have worn off on her.
And it wasn't even her project either, right? Like,
right.
That was the thing that was confused me too, because Tim Robbins, he buys this idea. Did he buy it because he thought it was stupid?
He bought it. He didn't buy it because
he was going to ship it off to the other guy. He's like,
he did ship it off to the other guy. He did ship it off to the other guy.
But then that guy got fired, though, for this movie. That's what I was confused about.
No. So what's the guy's name? It's not Peter Gallagher. It's like Peter something or other. But
Peter Gallagher, yeah.
Is that it? So yeah,
he
Peter
played
Gallagher.
Larry Levy.
Yes, Larry Levy is the character's name. There, thank you.
Yeah.
So Larry Levy, he gives the project to Larry Levy. That was his plan. The only reason he bought the script in the first place. This is so you were about to talk me down to a 4, and you might have talked me back up to a 4.5. It's great because he ends up buying a script. Given that he can only say yes to like 12 movies a year or whatever it is, he buys a script not because he thinks it'll be a good movie and it'll be great, or even that it'll make money. He buys it so he can set up another executive and screw them over, so he can keep his job or get a promotion. I mean, that's why he does it.
Right, because he saw him creeping on his,
Yeah, he was going to lose his job because of Peter Gallagher, so he has, Larry Levy do it. He's like, Larry Levy isn't going to know how to handle this. He doesn't have the experience I do, and he's going to screw it up. And then I'm going to come in and save the day. Like, it's going to be a big mess.
So that's what actually happened then?
That's my assumption. I mean, basically everything that Tim Robbins wanted to make happen.
Because we don't see that in the skip ahead year, right? He's in charge of that.
Yeah, we see that he gets promoted past Larry Levy.
Yeah, because their boss gets fired. We see that at the end of the thing. Because that was also leading up was that, remember his lawyer, the Sidney Pollack guy, was saying that the studio head might be out. That was also part of the whole thing. He didn't know if his boss was going to keep his job.
Oh, I think I missed that line.
Yeah, because then his boss, that's why he has the job at the end. So he got his boss's job.
So he got his boss fired. So, okay, so he bought a deliberately bad script so that they try to make it and fail.
That's just the guy from The Fifth Element. I don't know what else he's been in, but yeah, he was.
He's a character actor who's just kind of around.
He was the studio head in most of the movie.
Correct. Okay, so that's interesting. But I assumed that worked. That they got him to pay for the script. It wasn't working well. It was costing too much money, and the guy got fired. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I assumed that his whole plan. But he bought the script not because he loved the artistic merits of it, which is just another layer of cynicism. So, I mean, I'm waffling between a 4 and a 4.5, but I'll go with my first energy in 4.5. I mean, that's a movie that's super compelling to watch, and embodies sort of the horrific contradiction of movies and acknowledges the cynical reality of power of movie studio execs in general. And I love that it gives us a quote unquote happy ending, which is actually really dark, depressing, and honest. it feels like, yeah, we're getting a lot of medicine here. They made it work. So I love the movie. That's great. I will at some point pick a movie that I end up not liking. It'll happen someday. But today was not that day.
Not that day. All right, 5 Degrees of Field of Dreams, Ben.
You got loads of options. Yeah, I'll go. Well, no, how about you go first? I'm really happy with mine.
Sure, yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, like you said, there's a million. This would be one of those movies if you're struggling to find someone to connect, just like jump to this movie because just about every actor from the 90s you can think of. So
and it connects the 70s and the early 90s.
Right.
Like
different eras for sure. So starting with the player, I picked our guy Jeff Goldblum playing himself right in this movie.
Oh my gosh, yes, I already forgot Jeff Goldblum was in it. Oh.
Yeah. And so Jeff Goldblum is in Grand Budapest Hotel.
Love that movie.
Yeah, I know you love that movie. He's got one great joke in that where what's his face throws his cat out the window. He's like, "You just throw my cat out the window?" I thought that's probably my favorite part of that movie.
Okay.
But as every Wes Anderson movie, Bill Murray's in that. He's also in The French Dispatch, which I just watched. It's pretty good.
Okay.
And Willem Dafoe is in that. He's also in Clear and Present Danger with James Earl Jones, and James Earl Jones is in Field of Dreams.
Got it. Okay. So some excellent movies in there. I've been trying to make a connection for a while. There's a route I've been wanting to take, and it's very tough to get. I've needed a movie to fill in one slot to connect the other two pieces. And I'm excited. The player finally gave it to me. So we've got the player. One of those cameos is a guy named Elliot Gould, who is in the I think it's The Big Easy. Anyway, another he's in some other
Ocean's 11. He's in Ocean's 11.
Oh, yeah. He's the old guy in Ocean's 11, but he's got a big part on like the red carpet stuff as they're acknowledging the importance of film and how they want to preserve film as an important medium while they're all just getting rich and being absurd and opulent. Anyway, Elliot Gould's also got a small part in The Muppet Movie from 1979. Definitely love that movie. But the important thing is, though, that gets me to Madeline Kahn. Madeline Kahn is in a movie called Blazing Saddles with a lot of people. But in particular, she's with a guy named Slim Pickens. Do you know who Slim Pickens is, Eric?
No, I don't.
He's one of the guys that I think he's got this horrific line like, "We raped the." I mean, he just talks about what they're going to do to people in the village. Anyway, he's one of the outlaw cowboys in that movie, and he's also in the farting bean scene. Anyway, Slim Pickens is also in, and here's where you may recognize him, Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, is he the guy? Yeah, he's a cowboy guy. Yeah,
he's the guy that rides the missile down.
Okay, all right.
He's also in a movie called 1941 too. And James Earl Jones is also in Dr. Strangelove. So that's
he is. He's one of the pilots. That's right.
So that gets us to Field of Dreams. I've been trying to do the Blazing Saddles to Dr. Strangelove.
Well, you did it. You did it, man.
Finally. All right, Eric. So inquiring minds want to know, what are we talking about next time?
So the next episode of the Pot of Dreams will feature one of my faves, 1989's Batman. And hopefully by the time we do this episode, I will have seen the new Batman. I haven't seen it yet as of recording this episode. But very excited to see that. So I thought we'll jump all the way back to Tim Burton's Batman in 1989.
Oh, man.
It's on Hulu if anybody's out there wants to watch it. Leading up to it, it's on Hulu.
Awesome. All right. Well, next time.
And that's it. That's all we got for the Pot of Dreams. Ben, stay frosty.
Hey, Eric, what took you so long? Was traffic a bitch? All right. Next time, everybody.